Welcome to this edition of the Irreverent Therapists. I am joined, as always, by my faithful companion in irreverence, Pam Hodling.
Hello.
Hello. And today's episode is called Turbulence at the Boundary. You're floating gently down a river when all of a sudden you see rocks ahead and that I can't talk. Maybe I can't read.
That might be difficult for a live show.
All right, let's start again. You're floating gently down a river when all of a sudden you see rocks ahead and water is churning and wild. Help! This happens in our lives too. Everything seems smooth and under control, all the ducks in a row. And then out of the blue, there are big changes, things we didn't expect to happen. Our lives are upended, and what was stable before is gone. It's like the rug's pulled out from underneath you. Mm-hmm. What if you don't panic? What if you ride out being uncomfortable, knowing that this too shall pass? You are far more resilient than you believe. It's just a wave, and you can choose to ride it out with ease.
There you have this topic.
Go for it, Pam.
Well, it's interesting because, what I want to talk about isn't the obvious one. The obvious one is when Warren dropped dead suddenly and, the kids and I had our whole lives change. And we might get to that. But I know I've talked about that on the show some. No, but what I want to talk about is in a matter of a few months, I went from someone who was scared of horses to doing some quite wild riding. and to me, that journey was just what this is talking about. Because what I realized is, so first of all, Marilyn and I often go to a beautiful place in Costa Rica where there's classes going on and stuff that we might be attending. And it's called El Lugar. And there's a lot of horses there and a lot of people who are enjoying horses. And I've always had it at arm's length. Like, I don't get the horse thing. Plus, I did some riding as a kid, was thrown when I was jumping, never got it back on a horse. So I've had all this stuff going on, which I've used a lot of access tools to unwind. But somehow in the last few months, really managed to shift that in a big way. And so, I just got home from being in Costa Rica for 3.5 weeks. And at the start of that, I was still kind of like, okay, if I'm going to go ride this horse, let's, I don't want to walk on any muddy places where it might slip. Because I kind of feel like I know what I'm doing as long as everything's just right. Mm-hmm. And that could be a metaphor for my life. Like, a lot of how I've lived my life is as long as I've got everything, all lined up and I know what's going on and I can control things, then it's all good. And I did this conscious horse, conscious rider class where we rode horses on the other side of the river, where it's like 2 feet of mud and hills and rivers and all this stuff. And Marilyn, it was like two universes colliding. The part of me that needs things to be stable and safe and controlled and manageable. And a part of me that actually loves adventure and trying something new and being uncomfortable and going ahead and seeing what it creates. And it was, so over the course of many days, I did different rides and would alternate from pretty much terror. Like this one time we were going down this wooded, pathway that's all mud, and I could see the horses in front of me slipping and finding their feeding and stuff, their footing, and I'm holding on to the saddle, like, oh my gosh. But I did it, right? Yeah, and I don't think I've ever been as terrified in my life, as well as knowing that I'm choosing something so much greater. And I know people might be like, it's a horseback ride. What are you talking about? But that coming up against where I so need things to be as I'm expecting them to be, if that makes sense.
Controlled, yeah.
Controlled. Yeah. So it was a huge experience and shift and change for me. And I started see like the more comfortable I got in the writing, I could see where those same dynamics were playing out in my work, in my life, like, where I have made things extremely comfortable and I'm very good at what I'm doing and I can handle everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't been venturing into that true unknown.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, and yeah, some people might say horseback riding, but we've all got our stuff, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I was thinking about my own. Now, I travel alone a lot, and people are like, "How can you travel alone?" And I'm like, I mean, I just did a river trip in Europe, and I'm like, "How can you travel with people? They're annoying sometimes." So that's not a thing for me, but traveling alone is a big thing for a lot of people.
For a lot of people, yeah.
Being social can be a big thing for me. And I don't know, I've been hibernating kind of for a year, or a little over a year. Something had to do with the death of a pet and all this. And I found it very uncomfortable to reach out to people after that. I felt wounded by that. And I know there's some people out there who've lost pets, and certainly a huge thing when Warren just dropped dead of a heart attack. But this hit me harder than I ever thought it would. And I was just like this to the outside world. And I'm like, okay, well, I've got the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Do I want to stay? I mean, it just felt like I'd been run over by a Mack truck somehow, because I had imagined in my will, what am I going to do with Snow Kitty and HRH? Because I'll probably die before they do. And I had it all planned out, and the universe had other plans. So I did two things. One of them was, I'm just going to ride this out. I'm going to let myself grieve. I'm going to let myself be and do whatever's required, as long as I get the basics done, which was taking care of my other kitty, paying my bills, and I had help. I had someone help me clean the house and at work with the garden. And I saw you and a couple of other close friends. But it's like, you know what? I've got to change that. And this is going to sound crazy to people too, but last night was the last night of Restaurant Week in Santa Fe, where all the restaurants have special menus, and it's a big deal every year. I've been out to eat the past 10 nights, basically. And with different people.
Of course you have.
Of course I have, because I do love to go out to eat, and I'm happy doing it alone. But and I just found I really enjoyed it. And it's interesting because it was, I mean, this sounds weird, but it was kind of a scary step for me. And it actually, I said to a friend of mine who runs a Things Finder, it's like an estate sales store. It was awesome in Santa Fe, if you're ever there. I said, I don't understand it. When I'm traveling, I'm always out for dinner, usually by myself, which is fine with me. The hotel makes the arrangements, sends the cab. I said, but this is exhausting. And she said, well, Marilyn, when you're at home, you're still taking care of everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. And then added to it, this was a bit of a step for me after this kind of year of hibernating.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did it. I've really been having fun. And it just illustrates for me, take that step. Yeah. Like you took that step to do Conscious Source, Conscious Writer.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
I'm so glad. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's just, okay, jump off the cliff for whatever it is for you. Yeah. And it can be something small, or seemingly small. It doesn't have to be a divorce or the loss of a job or anything like that. Be kind to yourself. Look at the things that right now you consider challenging in your life for whatever reason, and take that step. That's what I would say.
Well, there's so much I have to say about everything you've been talking about. I mean, from the beginning. So one is like, just be an allowance of yourself, however you are with what's going on, right? Because if you're judging yourself, and I know during this year of hibernation, there were times you judged yourself. And they're like, oh, I should be doing more. But then you would actually take a look and say, hey, yeah, lots going on. Be kind to myself. And at the same time, pushing a little bit
Yeah.
where when you actually know it's time, because I'd say that's the thing, Marilyn, the restaurant week is something you enjoy. You have had like a tendency towards not doing such social things. And at the same time, you were like, okay, I'm just going to do this. And you
Yeah.
did. So
Yeah.
it's like you said, there's so many different things that can feel like they're upending our lives. I mean, a few years ago, I had a car accident that my car was out of commission for several weeks. Like just that, like, how do you do all your normal stuff? And you have all these things
Yes.
to deal with. And so for each of us, it's different
Yes.
what might go on that gives us that feeling of the rug being pulled out from under us, or it's just a bit more than I can handle, or just, everything to massively life-changing events. I mean,
Yes.
in the US, they just had massive wildfires out in California that
Oh
displaced,
gosh. Wow.
huge
Yes.
numbers of people. So there's that kind of stuff. But whatever it is, to me, if you let yourself be where you are in the moment, because some of the times, like in a given day, you might have some moments of absolute joy and fun, and some other times where you're in tears, or you're like, I don't know how I'm going to keep going, worry, or like whatever it is. What I've found is if I fight it, like, I shouldn't be feeling like this, I shouldn't be
Good.
sitting and watching TV instead of doing all these things I need to do. Whatever it is you're judging yourself for, that just takes your energy and locks you into a state of reaction
Yes.
instead of being able to actually be present with what is and choose what
Yes.
you're going to do with that.
Yeah, and I love that. You don't have to wait for the great big calamity and disaster. I used to say to my clients, just because someone's back is broken doesn't mean you should not take care of your broken toe that's hurting a lot.
Yeah.
You manage the small things. The other things about that is if you manage the small challenges, you develop a muscle
Yeah.
of being able to be with things. Okay, what's next? Always asking questions, knowing this too shall pass. This is not the end of my world. It's just the end of either my world or a part of my world the way I've known it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that, children change all the time. All of a sudden they've outgrown everything and they're running instead of crawling, and they're dating people instead of wanting to hang out with mom and dad. But then we have this idea that once we become adults, change stops. Change never stops.
This is who I am, and this is who I'm supposed to be.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, when I was a psychotherapist, there's this whole thing where a lot of therapists was, well, we have to help people discover who they are and be very solid in that. And I'm like, maybe not.
Yeah.
But that's a basic belief. Go ahead, Pam.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I work with someone, but in terms of facilitation and stuff like that, who has a very hard time with change and would like everything to stay exactly the same. And it creates a huge amount of I don't know, cognitive dissonance, like, because it's like you want the world to be this way, the world's this way, and so you're constantly fighting it and constantly on the alert for what's coming next, because then I'm going to have to handle that. So, to me, also doing things that help really create space and peace and ease for you and your body.
Yes.
Right. Because then the world can be churning, or even just changing slightly every day the way it does. And by you creating that peace and ease in your body and your day, to me, that gives you some resiliency for then adapting to all the changes instead of fighting them. And I love the image you put into the description of just write it out.
Write it out. Exactly. But also, I mean, what you're saying, Pam, is so critical. It's like you have a baseline and you have to develop that peace and ease. Like in the morning, if you're getting up, oh, it's my to-do list and I didn't sleep well. What's your day going to be like? if you take that time in the morning to do whatever works for you, it may be just sitting with a cup of coffee or tea. It may be walking the dog, but just expanding out. It may be going for a run. It may even be occasionally for me, doing dishes or doing chores that it's not mental.
Yeah,
Petting the cat. Always have to take care of the cat in the morning.
absolutely.
Absolutely. Or there's a
Well,
lot of complaining.
yeah. Like I said, I've just been, I think it was 3.5 weeks in Costa Rica at El Lugar. And there I was swimming every day. I was walking every day, like walking to and from things and horseback riding. So I was actually, my body was moving a lot.
Yeah.
And I got home and, the first couple of days I was like, I went out and took a walk and stuff. And then I had a couple of days where I let myself get caught up in all the things to do. And it would be like way past when my body was asking to go to sleep, that I'd be like, oh, now I need to do my exercises, because I have these stretches and different things. And I'd be, oh, I'm too tired. I'm just going to go to bed. So I did that 2 days in a row. And then I realized, like, this is not working for me.
Yeah.
Like, my body wants to move.
Yeah.
And every time I think of it, I'm like, well, I'll do that in a little bit.
Yeah.
And then not getting to it. So yesterday I actually took the car, drove to someplace beautiful and took a walk. And that was so nurturing to me and my body,
Yes.
And then early in the evening, I was getting up for, I was working, I was getting up for something. And I was like, I'm going to do those exercises. And
Yeah.
so I actually took care of all that in a timing that made it pleasurable and ease for my body, rather than either pushing myself to stay awake more and do it or not doing it. So sometimes it's just little choices like that. And often the choice to take care of ourselves is the one we put low priority on.
Yes, and that's the one that prepares us for the turbulence.
Exactly.
Right at the wave.
Yeah, because when I'm actually giving myself the space to get my bars run, the access bars, energy session, to do that, to take a walk, to take care of my body, eat well, eat what works for my body. I don't mean well, like, oh, there's a defined thing with that. But all of that creates that. Yeah, that to me, it's like a flexibility where things can be coming and I'm like, oh yeah, I can sway with it. I can ride with it instead of smack up against it and be like, oh man, this sucks.
Yeah. Cool. Well, folks, I think this is a good place to stop and have fun with riding the wave. That's what I would say.
Yes. And be nice and kind to yourself.
Yes. Thank you.
Cue the music.